Hello, we're back. I got Sir Dago here today with us. We're gonna beautiful face here. Look at this man. New Matthew Vaughn film. I think we're both general fans of Matthew Vaughn, right?
Yeah, I was a fan before I realized he was a fan. That I was a fan. I mean, X-Men First Class, Kick-Ass, great movies, and then the Kingsman movies. Big fan of those. So like retroactively, like seeing that this was a Matthew Vaughn film, like okay, yeah, like I kind of know some of his body of work. Yeah. So I really appreciate just the films that he's made. I think they're really good for what they are. If you hear that name, you know the movies he's done, you know what kind of movie you're kind of setting yourself up to.
Yeah, he has such a style that you're able to really pick up on once you like understand his vibe. My first experience with him was similar to you. I didn't know it was a Matthew Vaughn thing that I liked. I just was X-Men First Class. I was 11, and that was the first X-Men movie I really fell in love with. It was also one of those movies that, as a kid, he has this effect with a lot of his movies where I can watch them over and over again. They're very rewatchable, and I would watch like X-Men First Class on loop. And I have noticed that effect with like Kingsman and stuff like that because all of his films are super energetic and very fast-paced. Kind of outlandish with how it presents its action, but Argylle's no exception with that.
Right. And with that being said, I personally like this movie for a lot of different reasons. Some reasons, not so much. I'm not going to say I'm in the middle. I would say I'm definitely more on the side that I enjoyed this movie a lot. It was very fun. It was very entertaining. There was no dull moment. And also the fact that he's just a master at foreshadowing, in my opinion.
Especially in this one. Like, there's so many things you look back and you're like, wait.
Yeah, like his foreshadowing, like everything that they showed at one point, setting it up, is a callback, and he just ties up a lot of the foreshadowings, and then kind of sets it up, obviously, for like an expanded like universe, kind of how he did Kingsman, really well. His aesthetic, I think, has kind of formed into this kind of 80s, 70s vibe with a modern take. Yeah. I feel like it's definitely the modern aesthetic of what classic movies are like. Not just classic movies, but just like the music that they use, cinematography, like the shots they utilize, like they're so campy. Like you think about like an old kung fu movie, or just think about like the Power Rangers or something, like in an action scene. Obviously you would see like them flying across the screen doing a kick, and you obviously it's wires that's like and he's doing that but with CG. So it's like a modern take on that type of aesthetic, which is like really kind of weird. I know it's not for everybody, but personally I think that just it's part of like I chuckled when I saw that.
No, I agree, and I think what sells it, and I think that's what Argylle does really well, is it sells you on cheesiness because it's self-aware of it. It never feels like it's taking itself too seriously. All of his movies have, including Argylle, have this balance of like stakes and serious moments. Like you have a heartfelt romance that blossoms between the two main characters without giving too much away until we get into spoilers, but it's really unexpected where there's a genuine like beating heart between two characters having to bond with each other, but it also carries a sense of fun because when the action's going down, especially towards the third act, it feels like the movie is embracing its fantastical side and not afraid to do it. And I think that gives it almost a respectable factor where if a movie if it took itself too seriously, you would find it almost rather off-putting, where if it was going for this dark and serious brooding tone, but all this outlandish stuff is happening with a crazy unfolding plot, it would have come across as kind of forced.
It kind of starts being fantastical because obviously if you've seen the trailer, it's the Argylle universe and then the real world, where the main character played by Bryce Dallas Howard, she's supposed to be like a writer, right? So she's this very famous, accomplished writer in her world for writing the Argylle books, right? And they're divided into 5 books, and she's writing the last one right now. The movie starts with the Argylle aspect of it, where it's like, it's super fantastical. He does like a kickflip with a freaking like a Jeep. He does like a rail grind with a Jeep, and I'm just like
10 minutes in the movie.
Yeah, like what is this? Like it's so ridiculous. And then it like throws you back to obviously the real world, and you think, okay, it's kind of dull, it's kind of realistic, where it's like she's a writer, she's a regular person, and then it comes back on itself in the fact that, oh no, this is like the world they live in. The scene on the train, I think, kind of sets it up as like the turning point of the movie, where it's like, okay, this is like a spy action movie.
That was where it picked up for me, definitely, because I was like,
and what's his name?
Sam
Rockwell.
Yep.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell, man.
Genuine surprise in this movie. I didn't know he was in it at all.
Yeah.
And when he showed up, I was just like, holy shit. And you get a lot of them, too. I thought it was going to be maybe a quick side character.
Yeah, and like, I personally, I'm going to be real, like, I only know him from Iron Man 2, and as Justin Hammer, Iron Man 2, obviously in the Marvel movies, is not that memorable.
Yeah.
But Justin Hammer is something that's like sticks in my brain when I think of Iron Man 2. And I feel like there's a big problem just in general with Marvel, just a little sidetrack. They underuse a lot of their villains, like they don't bring them back. And Justin Hammer could have been brought back personally because Sam Rockwell is so fun.
Yeah.
Like he's just such a good actor. He could have been like kind of a Robert Downey Jr. in the sense of like, oh, we really have a diamond in the rough here. Here, like, he really does shine. He doesn't look like a main character. He doesn't look like a leading man. But he really does sell his part as this underwhelming looking guy.
Yeah.
But obviously that's the whole point of being a spy in real life. Is to being like an average looking dude and just being a badass.
Okay, yeah.
When you like give him like 2 seconds of attention.
Uh-huh.
And he really does really well. I think that was a good casting choice.
It was really good because, like you were saying, it's fun how his role in general plays and pokes fun at the spy genre, because I've never thought about that question of what do spies look like, or like why would they always look attractive or handsome or hot like that. Like Henry Cavill's haircut.
Right, the dude has the high top.
He's got the broken arrow John Travolta look, and it's beautiful, but it doesn't blend in. And I love that the movie calls itself out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
Spoiler-free thoughts. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very fun movie. In terms of Matthew Vaughn movies, super inventive, super fun. I think it struggles with pacing a little bit sometimes. I thought sometimes it went on a little too long, but it was only like around the middle, and I can't really tell you what I would cut out. I just think maybe I wish it kept some of the energy of the like high octane energy. Like I appreciated those moments where it breathed, but I could have used a little more sense of urgency at times, because whenever the movie slows down and you have such a big third act, it does feel like it drags on a bit, even though by the time I forgave a lot of the pacing, because the third act does really pick it all up. But overall, I enjoyed it.
I feel like it slowed down when they had to do world building, because I feel like in this movie they put the world building to the side. They mainly were focusing on the contained story. And I think the movie does like slam on the brakes, specifically when they introduce the Samuel Jackson's character. I mean, Matthew Vaughn has already used him in Kingsman movies. In the first one, in this one, he comes back, and in a way, he kind of plays the same guy. Yeah. Just a good guy version of it. Old school guy, but he's fun and kooky kind of. And it does, in that part of the movie, they kind of have to like kind of expose like a lot of what's going on, and I feel like it does drag a little bit in that part.
It's the exposition heavy scene.
Yeah, it's those scenes where it's like one character is explaining to the other character what's going on but they're actually doing it to us. Yeah. Instead of doing it throughout the movie to not make it seem as like loaded. Like I could look away, or I could walk out of the theater and get like a popcorn, or come back, or go to the restroom and come back, and I would still be seeing that scene, and I'd be like, okay, I can probably skip this part. Personally, I think everyone, for the most part, did a good job. Dua Lipa, I think it's like the first time I've ever seen her in a movie was Dua Lipa was in it. She's in the trailers. They used her for advertisement. Someone that I hadn't thought of, Ariana DeBose. She plays a character in the movie, and she did really good in this. I guess I hope it opens more doors for her. She can really sing. She does the main song for the movie. Electric Energy. I don't know if you remember. It was like the motif. They played it like at different parts. Yeah. Electric. It was really catchy, and it had Boy George in there, so which again calls back to the whole '80s vibe. Fair. Disco type.
Matthew Vaughn's ability to use music to tell a story is really prevalent in this movie, especially with telling us connections with characters. Like, there are so many moments. Like, the beginning, the opening, like, number, it's almost kind of a musical for a second. It's almost dreamlike and fantastical. Now we're getting into spoilers, so spoilers ahead. Both really like the movie. Fun Matthew Vaughn time, but you've been warned. If you don't want spoilers, get out or stay. We can be friends. It's okay. A lot of the actual spy elements are not dream sequences, but the writer's mindset and what she's thinking about when she's writing a book. And not a lot of the true action sequences that actually happen in camera and in reality for the character happen until that train sequence where we see him.
Right. I think the movie, the way it's written, it has a lot of different elements from other stuff you've seen. Yeah. Like the fact that they're spies. They have like Manchurian Candidate type stuff where she's a writer and she's been able to... Winter Soldier, where she's been able to predict all these like world calamities and written them in the story, incorporated it, and then they talk about, there's people in real life that have done this before, like, are you actually a spy? And she was like, well, if I was, I'd never tell you.
Yep.
Ha ha ha, everybody laughs. She really doesn't believe she's a spy. As you watch the movie, you realize that she actually is. And they kind of, again, going back to the foreshadowing, they foreshadowed it throughout the movie. She has this thing, which I think it's also a motif with writers, which is that they're crazy. And she sees Argylle everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially when she sees the character of Aiden, which is Sam Rockwell's character. She sees him, and then she'll blink, and it'll be Argylle. And then she'll feel like, oh my God, like Argylle, he's saving me. And then she sees at one point herself on the reflection of a mirror, and then she blinks and she's Argylle. So it's like, oh, that kind of gave me the nudge of like, oh, there's more to this than just her seeing Argylle on the character of Aiden. She herself is kind of an Argylle. And you realize that she is. But she was in an accident which is another motif. I feel like Fast and Furious did it. I'm sure other movies have done it, where like she was in an accident and she lost all her memories. She was a blank slate. And she used to be this super special agent, which her name was like rhymed with Argylle, which was Rachel Kyle, R. Kyle, which was super like, it's so dumb.
It's so funny.
It's so dumb. It's so on the nose.
It's so deliciously stupid.
It's so right. It's like obviously R. Kyle. Like it's so dumb.
I love it.
Yeah, but it's so self-aware.
Yeah.
Which is really like, you have to know what Matthew Vaughn does, which is he's just corny left, right, and center. Like the way he writes the characters, the dialogue between them. Rockwell again, he's just like a dude. Like, he's a spy, but he's a dude. And he's like right on and. I hate your cat or whatever. Like he's like a regular guy that just happens to be a badass. Same with her. She's just a regular person, but she realizes that she's not. It never fails to entertain you. That's what I'll say. When the action is present, it'll keep you grounded. Not to the level of Kingsman, in my opinion. I feel like Kingsman like really raised the bar on what some action scenes can be.
It kind of spoiled us because every movie I've noticed post Kingsman, when it comes to Matthew Vaughn, but that church sequence. That church sequence. There's a little up to that church sequence.
Right,
every
it's
time.
the church, like that's the litmus test of like just Matthew Vaughn, but like a lot of action scenes, man. Because the long take ass whooping in the church is, and they do something like that. He tried to recreate it, and I told Justin when I got out of the movie theater, it didn't sell me as much. The scene we're talking about is in the ship. So they're fighting. We haven't even talked about the character of Bryan Cranston. He's such a pivotal role in the movie. He's the bad guy. I love seeing Bryan Cranston as the bad guy because the voice, he just has this voice, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of lines in this movie that only the actors cast in this movie could sell to. So with Bryan Cranston, it was such a brilliant, self-aware casting. His
introduction scene is literally him. I forgot, I don't even know the actor's name, but I know he's from Deadpool. He's just talking to him, and he's like, why have you failed me again? And he's like, I'm sorry about it, it won't happen again. He's like, you said that last time. And then he brings out this shotgun, which is another foreshadowing. It's called Clementine, and he goes into the story about Clementine being his grandfather's or his father's shotgun, and he named it after his mother or grandmother. And then he's like, I'm not going to kill you. And then he has it like on his shoulder, turns around, and just pulls the trigger, and then he blows the guy away. I'm like... Yeah, just basic bad guy that doesn't care about his people, or like the good people.
It was a fun little shtick because it's like, he's obviously gonna shoot him with the gun, whatever. He doesn't. Then you're just kind of waiting a second, and then he turns around, does it again.
Yeah, blinds.
And it was just, I don't know. I love those little quirkier moments in this movie because even like the villain, like Bryan Cranston, isn't above it. Like a level of funny, but still like, okay, you're still a ruthless guy, so I at least am sold on the stakes of it all. Like,
full psychopath.
Especially with like the twist, like we were talking about. This movie takes so many twists and turns with its characters and how they're connected. Because like her parents and that whole thing with Bryan Cranston was a genuine shock to me. Right. I haven't been that shocked in a long time where I was like kind of watching the movie and I was like, oh shit, that caught me off guard because he walks in and it's actually his dad.
You want to know something? I knew something had to do with the dad because you only saw Catherine O'Hara. Schitt's Creek, Catherine O'Hara, Beetlejuice. She is the mom of Bryce Dallas's character, and she just sells it completely. She's super mom. Like, she's just not super mom, but she's just like a mom. Yeah. Like, the first person, Ellie, which is the character, she was her mom when she's like, Mom, I'm stuck. Like, I think I finished my book. And she, like, reads her the book, and she's like, this is garbage. I hate this. And then you look back on it, and it's because it's not the ending they want, because they think she's psychic.
Yeah.
They think she's actually predicting the future or she's predicting what's going on. You see her being concerned about her writing a bad ending, and she's playing it as, oh, your fans aren't going to be happy. You have to actually put more work into this ending.
Yeah.
Come over to the house. We'll figure it out together, all this and all that. And then she's like, your dad's going to be here, and your dad this, and your dad that. And the dad has been talked about in the movie a lot, but he's never shown.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, the dad's got to be someone important. I didn't actually thought it was going to be Bryan Cranston, so that really threw me for a loop there too.
Well, because the movie presents the parents as if they're not going to be that important at the beginning. So it's like, I'm kind of thrown off when that happens, because I didn't expect them to even come back into the story until she's like, hey, I'm coming over, I'm freaking out. You know?
Yeah, right.
So it threw me for a loop.
Yeah, so again, I love that type of stuff where you can kind of build the movie as you watch it, and then it throws you on a different direction.
Yeah.
Because you as a watcher, as the audience, you have your ideas of what might happen next. And then you don't. And then you're like, oh wait, it's nothing like we thought. I feel like up until the end, I really thought they were going to kill Aiden's character.
Yeah, same.
You know, that was a twist, which, because I never shy away from realizing Matthew Vaughn isn't scared of killing like central characters, you know.
Sometimes a little too unceremoniously.
Yeah,
you know, Golden Circle, but
right, Golden Circle, a Kick-Ass 1. So I'm thinking like nobody's safe.
Yeah.
You know, especially you think that they are, and then out of nowhere they get killed or get taken out without you thinking. I was thinking maybe that was gonna happen because the way they set up the movie, obviously at the end, which is very, very interesting, and I want to talk about this now. The character of Argylle himself, we always think he's fictitious. He's always fictional. He's just a manifestation of her being a super spy. Once she lost her memory, she created this character of Argylle. That's what we're thinking. Yeah. And then she creates the character of John Cena, being Aiden, and then the character of, I think her name is Kiera. She's the same character. She stayed the same. But then she was also very pivotal because of the shot that saved Aiden was the same shot that she did when she shot her friend, or her friend got shot, I'm sorry.
The interesting ending with this movie, because when it connected to the Kingsman world, it didn't necessarily detract from what happened before or anything like that. It just got me more curious, because I couldn't tell if the movie was trying to set up another world, if it was just kind of doing a love letter, like, hey, these worlds are connected, because some directors connect their movies like that. So I couldn't tell if it was basically doing a Shyamalan split ending, or just like a Pixar connection, like, oh yeah, that ball over there exists, and that's okay,
right,
you know?
Right. Them tying it to Kingsman, it's not predictable at all, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
especially with the outlandish nature of stuff going on in this movie.
Right. So the Division as an organization, it's not Kingsman at all. They're the bad guys. And obviously Aiden and Bryce Dallas' character, they're the bad guys. They realize they're the bad guys. They don't want to be bad anymore. That's why they go through this whole journey of trying to find the silver bullet. She was still playing both sides, and the whole movie she was kind of on the fence. It goes back to the Argylle thing, and it shows that he's a real dude. And my theory on that is that she has to have known him when she was an agent. She probably hasn't had all her memories back. So I feel like he was probably her Harry to Eggsy and Kingsman. That's
like,
like the mentor.
Memory kind of thing.
Well, I'm sure that she's written all these books, right? And we are watching it as it being the last book while the story's unfolding, while she's writing the ending. So that is the last of the, I think it's 5 books or 6 books that she writes. And they're gonna now throw it back to book 1.
I got
And
you.
if there's another movie that's gonna be made, it's gonna be Argylle, book 1, with that actor that I don't even know who he is, but he plays a young Henry Cavill that goes to the bar, and I think he meets the character that they show. I think it's one of the guys from Statesman in the Kingsman, the
yeah,
Circle.
because he was American.
He was American. I forgot.
With like that heavy accent.
Yeah, so I think he might have been in Kingsman. Maybe not. He is Henry Cavill, young. So he has a British accent.
Yeah.
And he's in the bar, and he just enters, and he asks for like a specific drink to like say the secret code, and then the dude realizes he's a Kingsman. And they kind of just leave it at that, and he says his name, and I'm thinking he's gonna say Harry the whole time. I'm thinking this is Harry, like an agent from Kingsman that we've seen before, but it's Argylle himself. So it's like, okay, never mind. So it is Henry Cavill's character. So the only way that I feel like she wrote that into her book series, because I feel like it follows her book series, is that she knows him and she just didn't remember. That's my theory going forward.
Okay.
You heard it here first. if that's what happens to be in the next movie, or he does it on a weird order again, how he did Kingsman, because he did 1, 2, and then 3, but it goes 3, 1, 2. I mean, at this point in time, a bunch of movies do that, where they throw a movie down the line, but it's obviously referencing another point in time, because they just want to expand the universe. Star Wars does it, Fast and Furious does it, Avengers do it, so I think he's building his own kind of film anthology. With this one, it's just another one.
And normally I would be honestly annoyed by that, because at that point with franchises where if a movie is wanting to just world build, I feel like it's just doing it because they saw Marvel succeed at it. As to where here I'm not as honestly frustrated, because I feel like with Matthew Vaughn's doing it, he has a passion to do that. Like it feels like it's something he wants to do and a story he may want to tell. So I have faith that even if it's all connected, it would be fun to see. Like, I wouldn't mind a Kingsman Argylle lived-in world or a crossover of some kind of variety like that. Like, seeing a Division member get taken out in a Kingsman movie. Cool.
Right.
Honestly, I'll eat it up at this point. I don't trust him. Even if this isn't my favorite Matthew Vaughn movie, it was so damn entertaining that when the moments like at the ending can make us like it can spark us conversations like this, it just makes me excited, and I like the fact that he is starting to build out a world like that. I don't know what kind of connection we'll have in the future, but I am excited to see it with whatever that is. I wouldn't mind. I hope we see more Henry Cavill. If he continued playing that role that we saw him at the end of this movie in, it would be interesting. Like, what would he do? Because it looked kind of different from what I'm used to seeing him play.
Right. No, it's definitely way more loose, way more self-aware, self-referential. He takes himself too seriously as the character of Argylle is Jack, the jacked agent, James Bond type. I want to think of it as, imagine if you take James Bond and put him in the Austin Powers universe.
That's a great way.
You know what I mean? This is definitely more out there than Kingsman, in my opinion.
Most definitely.
So it's kind of like, it's familiar, but it's still, in a way, it's kind of refreshing. So I do feel like I'm invested enough to keep seeing these. I don't know if I'm like 4 or 5 movies worth. No. I'm sure he's going to have to mix it up somewhere. He's going to have to throw in something to really keep the audience and keep the hype. I don't know how well it's doing in the box office. I haven't seen any other reviews for the movie. I didn't want to taint my own perspective of it as an audience member. Yeah. But I went in not expecting much from it. I'm telling you, I was almost gonna not want to watch it. I only did it because we went as a group, and Justin referred it. And so I hope it's good. It does well, and if it does well, it continues to do well. If it's not, I'm sure it's going to be one of those movies that we're going to go back to and definitely give it another look at.
I've seen some reviews now. I waited until I saw the movie, but I looked around just online, and like it's gotten divisive. Like, for example, on the TikTok I posted for like the pregame review, which like I just kind of gave my brief thoughts on it with no spoilers. It was like a split on people commenting. One person commented like, "Oh, I really loved it. It was a blast, a nutty movie. I love the nutty nature of it." And the very next comment was, the tone was way too wacky for me. It just kind of turned me off from it. I prefer the Kingsman tone. So it was like, I oddly get both sides, where it's like, I can see that divide, but this movie, I can have both. It's like, I like the fact that Argylle was able to dive into the more outlandish stuff, because we still have Kingsman movies. I can always rewatch Kingsman 1 if I want to. So like, I'm okay if things are a little different, but I can understand the other side of that. If someone said it was too crazy and it lost him, because especially with that like fog action sequence.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
That was right.
Incredible, but I can see anyone being like, "Oh, this is too much." Really like that.
Right. I'm sure it kind of takes a lot of people out. That scene definitely was where it started getting like.
Yeah, but I loved it. But I can't argue.
Yeah, and I feel like majority of people that leave reviews for this movie, sometimes they can take themselves too seriously. And I feel like majority of obviously movie watchers don't take themselves too seriously, so I feel like they'll enjoy something like that scene.
Dude, the CG here is one of those things that it feels like the movie wants the self-awareness to kind of speak for the CGI effects too, and I wish they don't have to necessarily make better effects, but maybe just create scenes that kind of rely more on the practicality that comes from those earlier Matthew Vaughn movies that sell it so well, like Kingsman 1.
Kick-Ass.
Yeah, Kick-Ass 1 and Kingsman 1 especially. Like, Kick-Ass 1, so much practical work in that movie, and it all sells you. Like, the scene where they have to save Big Daddy, that whole sequence feels so tangible because there's not a lot of CG going on. It's playing with lighting, darkness, that kind of stuff. I would love to see more of that return to form, whereas I think from Kingsman 2 on, it's like Matthew Vaughn movies started infusing CG into elements where you don't necessarily need a bunch of computer effects. I mean, I get for here they wanted to sell you on the ice skating moment, but maybe a little more cleaning up because you are covering really good stonework up when you use a bunch of CGI effects to cover it up. You know?
Right.
And the stunt performers do a lot of work to make that happen.
Of course.
Cover it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that you go into a really interesting territory. You can never go wrong with practical effects. I remember watching Kick-Ass, and I'm thinking about this movie, and I'm thinking the violence in this movie is way more than Kick-Ass, but the violence in Kick-Ass is so much more visceral.
Yeah.
Because it's practical. Like, when you felt someone got hit, it felt like, oh my God, they broke a bone.
Yeah.
Like, it's real. Like, this hurts. And in this one, it was so much more violent because it's, like, more like a spy movie. You know, it's so much more grandiose. But it doesn't feel like that.
On paper, it's more violent. In execution, it's
it feels right. It just feels more like a kind of typical action movie in the sense. But if he were to go back or in the next movie, that would probably be one of my biggest adjustments to it. Would just be like keep it practical, and just try and go back to that form of making it more visceral. You don't necessarily have to have as much action. Just make sure that when you do, make sure it hits.
Yeah,
it really does.
It's a true balancing act. You need to be able to have those crazy moments that really stand out, but you can't have every single action sequence be the church sequence. And I think that's something Matthew Vaughn kind of does with his movies sometimes, is I think he tries to make a lot of his action look like that visual aesthetic of the one-shot CGI kind of tracking of the church sequence, which
shot,
yeah, which had I think a better blend of CGI and practical.
If you had to rate it like 1 out of 10, what would you give it?
See, I'm really bad about number ratings. Since you're asking though, I will give you one. It is for me. If I was having to do a number, I'll go 7. Honestly, like in terms of that whole scale, I would give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
Yeah, if we were going by a 10 scale. 7 out of 10. Stars 3 out of 5.
I think for what it's trying to do, I was just wanting to get a reference point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I still have my number.
Like right in that middle range.
Yeah, so I would say for what it is, I would give it probably like a 7.5, 7.3 to 7.5.
Out of curiosity, you're probably about to get into it, but just what makes it that decimal point? Like
I think because of the fact that it could have been an 8.
Gotcha.
Personally,
Yeah.
It could have been an 8 for me, but I think it goes back, and it might be going back a little farther because again of those small criticisms that I have with the pacing dropping at some points, and then the CG not being my cup of tea, especially being aware of how ridiculous the movie is and how self-aware it is. It just dialed it back. It kind of took me out of the action itself, which was the main course. Yeah. I do want to see the next one. I want to see where he takes it. Like the second movie really has to do something really special because this one, I think overall was something different. I'm not going to say something super out of groundbreaking. Again, we've been comparing it to Kingsman left and right and center. Matthew Vaughn has stuck with his guns, has stuck with the stuff that he knows, and I think he's just obviously not part of a studio. He's Marv, I think, is the studio that he's part of, and now he has more money, and it kind of shows. I kind of see the studio touch, the industry touch to it. It still doesn't take away from the talent of Matthew, but it definitely I think that the studio should kind of
in the effects department, in that kind of dark.
They should kind of just let it cook, let him cook a little bit more. Because we already know he can be really good. So
let him play.
So if you haven't watched it, I recommend you watch it. I think it's a really fun movie, especially to go watch as a group with your significant other. You can watch it by yourself and have a laugh, tons of laughs. I laughed a lot in the movie.
Genuinely,
I laughed in scenes that they're not even talking; they're just doing goofy stuff.
I like the comedic stuff, and I like the conversation scenes more than the action. I just want to see these people talk to each other.
It's really hilarious.
Especially Sam Rockwell, you can just
yes. And I'm a guy that it's hard for me to laugh in movies.
Yeah,
it is. Even movies that are meant to be funny, I can't really laugh in movies.
You give it that smile and nod of respect when you're laughing.
Just that the nose exhale, that I'll give it that, but I actually laugh. So if that gives you kind of a reference point, you'll probably enjoy it too.
Yeah, Argylle's fun. It's a good time. Has some good elements. Has some other rough elements. But overall, we had a blast with it. I hope you do as well if you've checked it out. You probably have if you're watching this because you just got the whole movie spoiled for you for the most part. But if you're watching so much, if you have, and PSA from me and Sir Dago, if you are seeing Henry Cavill in the mirror, get some help and we don't judge you. Yeah.